Okay, welcome. Thank you, Marvin, and all the people if they are going to see before, then, after. Everyone is very welcome. Well, let's go through some facts. How to set up a business in Brazil. Um, some general facts about Brazil that maybe some of them know. That is the largest country in South America and Latin America. So just to have an overview, Brasilia is the capital and São Paulo is the most populous city. So we are here in São Paulo, 13 million inhabitants. And we got the federal district, so we are 27 states at the end of the day. Uh, the real, we call it real, is the currency right now in Brazil. So after many changes, the real is the currency right now. Well, just to have an idea of the map, many people don't know 100%. So just to understand, we have different regions. We're talking about 5 regions. So we got the north over here, we got the northeast, the center-west, the southeast, and the south. We are here located in the southeast, in São Paulo is here, okay? So, and also it's important to mention that the Brazil has borders with Argentina, Bolivia, Colombia, all here. Guyana is over here. Paraguay is there. Suriname, Uruguay is down the bottom. And Venezuela, more or less here. So it's the biggest country in the region. Okay. As an economic environment, we are talking about the 10 largest economy in the world, or largest producer of coffee, cellulose, sugar cane. So many commodities, many agro. Is the largest exporter of iron and one of the world main producers of aluminum and coal. And the largest rainforest that everyone's know, mainly on the films also. That is very common to, but it's, in those days they are discussing a lot of about the rainforest, about the Amazon. So everyone knows a little bit about that. I'm going to mention the main industries in Brazil. So we got the petrochemistry, the consumer goods, energy, steel and metallurgic. We're talking about very big industries and very big companies like Petrobras, like Vale, like Volkswagen, the automakers. We are talking about Braskem, General Motors, the ArcelorMittal, Usiminas. They are very big. So these are the main industries. In also regarding gross revenues and for example, as I said, the automakers, the steel and metallurgic, and the consumer. They are mining. They are the top 10 in Brazil. So they are very big. But the big questions and we want to answer is why invest in Brazil? So it's important to give a quick look on that because it's a leading regional economy. So we are talking about the GDP of 2020, 1.43 trillion. Of course, we got a lot of things on a very big potential. They always talk about Brazil, about the giant. The giant is going to awake, but it's really a big giant with a lot of opportunities and different business sector. A global destination for investment. We are talking about 58 billions of foreign investment, direct investment. We got a large pool of workers because the population is 230 millions. It's a lot of opportunities regarding territory, and it's a diversified economy when we're talking about exports. And 280.4 billions. So these are the main sectors that we have. Agribusiness is 21% of the Brazilian GDP. and 21% of the Brazilian workforce. I think this is very important because Brazil combines 12% of the world water supply. That is important to mention, and as one of the largest arable land areas in the world. So there's room for a lot of things still to do a lot of. Sorry about this was. And there are a lot of incentive programs for agriculture and livestock. So the governments always give some taxation, tax exemptions, and very different incentive programs that are incentive the agribusiness. You know, Brazil contributes with a 40% of the global food production till the 2050. So it's very important. Regarding infrastructure, we are talking about, well, you know, Brazil is very big. So of course it relies on logistic and transportation. So there are very different assets as power generation, mining, sanitation, because there are key issues in order to develop the country. You know? So we are talking about 1,700,000 of kilometers of road network, but we are talking about 16 airports from the private sector that is developing, still developing, and all the tons of cargo transported in Brazil through the ports in 2019. And the railways are still something that we have to develop. So there's a lot of room on that, because as I said, Brazil relies on logistics and transportation because it's a big country. So in order to transport all the commodities and all the agriculture's products and other products to the ports or to the airports or to deliver. So investment in opportunities in coming years, I mean, for the supply chain, I think there are many opportunities on that. Okay. Not only for experienced companies, but also for newcomers, you know. Well, this is very important. The oil and gas producer, we all heard about Petrobras. Is a very big company. Brazil is 10th into the world's largest oil producers. So it's the first one in Latin America. And it has the 15 largest proven oil reserve. We call it pre-salt well. So there are also is many business and developing business there. Of course, there are the big ones are on this sector, but as a part of this development, for example, the Petrobras have an investment plan that was launched in 2019 and includes the selling of 8 refineries, so onshore and conventional offshore productive operations. So this may create some opportunities. And it's important talking about also the renewable energy, because 80% of the Brazilian electricity generation came from renewable. We are talking about hydroelectrics and biofuel. Brazil has something to to invest and to understand. Is the 9th largest power consumer producing in the world. So it has a very well-regulated market, and it has some opportunities on this sector also. So I think it's important to mention that. Okay. And well, we are talking about the I didn't mention infrastructure, but we are talking about the venture capital and private equity. I think it's important to mention that we have 220 fund managers, 18 unicorns in 5 years. So it's increasing and participation also from the companies and from the common citizen. 66% of the capital come from international investors, and we have 13 southern startups. So I think it's important to also, it has increased a lot of over the last 9 years. So this began in 2011. So Brazil has presented 50% of the deals made in the region, followed by Mexico and Chile. So Brazil is 50% when Mexico represents 22% and Chile 9%. Okay. GDP variation from last year was 4.6. Of course, we are in a very difficult time right now due to the situation around the world and inflation and all, everything what is going on. But even though Brazil grow 4.6, the expectation is to grow the same for this year. One thing that is I think is important to mention also is talking about São Paulo, because something is very important, that 70% of GDP is services. So we talk about the main industries. We're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about oil and gas. We're talking about agribusiness. But 70% of GDP is services. It's the same more or less in the United States. That is 76%. So it's important to mention because we have a lot of also opportunities on that. So it's not only focused. We have to mention the big companies in the that we have here that are sometimes very difficult on concentrated sectors, but the services sector is expanding. So it's very important to mention that, and also to mention the opportunities that we have. We have a very big market. I think although sometimes we talk about complexity or because the country is very big, but there are a lot of opportunities on that. So if you have the right partner and you understand, you have many opportunities. So 70% of the GDP is services, and we have to mention São Paulo. São Paulo, 32% of the GDP of Brazil. So this is also important to mention. That's why we brought here, because São Paulo represents the powerful and the future is in a sense of what also Brazil could be. So in Brazil, we're talking about 32%. As you can see, the industry 31%. These numbers are related to the GDP of Brazilian GDP. So transformation industries is almost 4%, 40%. Construction, services, we're talking about services and another services almost 60%. So it's very representative. When talking about services in Brazil, we are talking about information and communication services, professional, administrative, complementary service, technical, professional service. We got a big variety of that. In security, office service, administrative support, so transportation also. You can see that transport, storage, and mail is 35%. So and as I said, regarding the GDP, you are talking about 32% of Brazil. So it's important to mention that. And we are here in São Paulo, so it's not only because we are here, but it's because we know and we know the economy and the possibilities that we have in São Paulo. Okay, so now we're talking about a little bit about the entities and the different entities that we have in São Paulo. Just when you want to do a business, this is I have presented the main industries and sectors. Of course,
entities in Brazil, you mean?
Yeah, the type of entities in Brazil. The most common, we have the simple societies, the limited liability company, and the joint stock corporation. I would say most of the companies in Brazil are limited liability company. So this is, I think most of them have, as happened abroad also in other countries, the LLC is the most common company, is the most type of business entity. So we're going to have a brief review of that. Important to mention there is no minimum corporate capital requirements, because sometimes people are asking how much money you have to invest. So there is no a minimal capital requirement. You need at least 2 quota holders. So yeah, it could be individuals or legal entities. I think this is the most important. Also, we have a highlight that is they have to be formally represented, because many companies coming from abroad don't know how to start a business, so they don't know how it works exactly. So you have to be represented by a resident here in Brazil, a Brazilian resident, or someone that is here, that is empowered to receive lawsuits or summons. I mean, in order to represent the investors, to have a power of attorney, and have all this power to represent the people from abroad. And there's important to mention also that non-residents must obtain a tax ID, the quota holder. So it's a very common process. I'm very fast to do it, but they have to obtain a tax ID, because the IRS want to understand who are there, who are they, who are them. Sorry, and of course have an identification. Uh, Talking about the joint stock corporation, well, there's our main law that regulates this kind of corporation. Is essentially the same as all around the world. Its capital is divided into shares. I think the important thing to mention here is that we have two kinds of shares, the common and the preferred. The main difference between one and the other is that the common shares give you the right to vote, and the preferred give the profit distribution. They call it preferred just because of that, because when it comes to profit distribution, they are first in comparing to the commons. I think this is important that is corporation be formed by the public. You know, on we could be public or private, so open capital or not. So we have the CMV, that is the regulates all the related to open capital companies that could be traded on the stock exchange. So this is regarding the main companies, the main limited company and the joint stock corporation. Something is that is very important. People that want to invest in Brazil, what is profit distribution. Everyone's want to know about profit distribution. So profit distribution is not subject of taxation. So this is very important. Till now, they are discussing a lot of laws regarding taxation of profit distribution, but according to right now, till now, profits are not subject to withholding income tax, so there is no problem about that. Being an individual or a legal entity, even in the country or abroad, there is no difference on that. So it's important to mention that the profit distribution is not taxable. The one that is taxable is the company itself, the profit of the company, but not the distribution of the profit.
This is good, huh?
Yeah, I think this is very good. It's very attractive. So you come here and have a lot of this. If you do the right business, you're gonna have a profit distribution. Regarding the limited company distribution, do not have this is just to mention something specific, that the distribution do not have to be made pro rata of the percentage of the holdings. You know, this sometimes if someone got 50% and the other 50%, it shouldn't be that way. This is more related to how the agreement of the company. On the other hand, the joint stock corporation, the law requires, yes, a distribution and a payment of mandatory dividends. So this is important to mention, and also that all the companies that are joint stock corporation should have 5% of the profits have to apply like of the formation a reserve in order to, in case something doesn't go very well. You know, it's just have to something to give a, you know, to it is related in order to protect the company. Yeah. Okay. Very quickly, necessary steps to set up the company. So you for the foreign shareholders, they have to be registered in the Brazilian Central Bank. So registered on the Brazilian Central Bank database is important. We have to prepare the bylaws saying which is the objective of the company and which is the business that is going to do. Of course, it could change during the time, but we have to state that on the bylaws, have to translate into Portuguese and register before the tax authorities. We have the what we call it the Junta Comercial, that is the Board of Trade Registration, and appoint a registered accountant, of course, that will be your guide on this travel. Is going to be the guidance in order to you to do the right things on this trip. So it's important to have a registration and prepare the bylaws. This is pretty much the same in other countries, of course, but it's important to mention. And other thing that is important are regarding other registrations that we need according to the business that we are going to do. So we have a registration to, if you want to hire employees, you have some registration you got to do on the social security system, for example. If you want to provide services, you have to have a registration on the municipality. If you want to trade goods on the state, we have to a state registration. Understand which is the trade union registration that the company is linked to, and issue a digital certificate. The digital certificate is something very important because the companies communicate with the federal revenue. Today everything is electronic, so we send all the information to the federal revenue, and the federal revenue also send information to us, or requested information everything is electronic. So that was a digital certificate. It's like a card, a small card, or could be a token, or could be a filing on your computer, but that can communicate with the federal revenue. That makes the communication very at the same time easy. And at the same time we have the IRS have a better control over all the operations and all the business. So we have to be aware of that. Okay, then we have to talk about our tax system. It's not always easy to talk about tax system, but and it's always a hard subject, but let's try to make it simpler as we can. So let's say that it's important to regard that Brazil as is a federation. So we have the federal, state, and municipal level, okay, of the taxes, and we have from a point of view from its purpose, there are some taxes that are there to regulate the economy, because we call it extra fiscal and para fiscal, or fiscal because it's with its objectives, for example. So let's say the imports tax is someone that could, or taxes over manufactured goods is a tax that is sometimes just to regulate the economy, or to favor certain sectors, or to stimulate business, or is used by the economy just to regulate by the government. And according to the financial burden, we're talking about direct and indirect taxes. I think this is very important, because we have many taxes that are inside our price, and many taxes that are outside the price. And then we're going to explain that later on very quickly, because most of the countries are already used to what we call it VAT, so the value added tax. So but in Brazil we didn't have that yet, so they are trying to we have to explain the different taxes and how they works. Okay. So this is important for the companies. Just a quick overview. The main tax rates for the companies regarding income tax. So the corporate income tax is 15% plus an additional of 10%. And we got the what we call it social contribution, that is 9%. In general, it's 9%, and there are certain specific companies and entities that have a different rate, like financial institutions. But just to understand, a quick look, I did a calculation here just to show you that if you, for instance, you have a profit, for example, before the income tax of 270,000 to 2,700, sorry, income tax will be 15% with this amount. Okay, and then we have the additional 10% of 3,000, and the total income tax on this example is 43,500. And how do we get the 3,000? So just to explain, there's a legal deduction that you can do. So if your profit was 270, you can make a deduction of 240. Okay, of course we're talking about 1,000, but just to make it easier. So why? During the whole year, or you have 60,000 by quarter. You can divide it into quarters or into the whole year, but the whole year will be 240. So then the first section happens over the 15%, and then what remains, we make a deduction of this amount. So the calculation based on this example is 30,000. So over the 30,000, we apply 10%, and then we have the 3,000. So this will be applied, because this rule is a little bit confusing. So when we're talking about 15% plus 10, people think about 25% or something like that. So just to understand that is a calculation on that. So we have to deduct this legal deduction. Okay. This is from a federal tax. Is from a federal tax point of view. Other tax that is important is the what we call it PIS and COFINS. There are social security contributions. They are based on revenues. The other tax is the income tax is based on profit. You know, it's based on accountable or accounting profit. This is based on our revenues. So it's different, the calculation. So, and we have two regimes. One is what we call it the cumulative regime, that you don't have a right to have tax credits, but at the same time the tax rates is less, so it's 3.65. And the other is the non-cumulative regime, that is 9.25, but you have the tax you have the right to have the credits on that. So this is important to understand depending on the regime you are, because this is different. So you have the right, for example, to have the credits over goods, over something that you are services you need in order to perform your main business. Okay, and we have the IPI, that is a tax on manufacturing. As we said, this is an extra fiscal tax, because it's go from 0 to 35, and depending on the tariff cost is calculated. I think this is the only one tax in Brazil that is calculated as the VAT that we were talking before. Okay. Now we are talking about the state taxes. State taxes, that was what we have mentioned. It was on a federal level. Now we are talking about the state taxes. The state taxes is on sales of goods and certain specific services like transportation, for example. and it is go from 7 to 35. What we want to highlight here, what I think is the most important thing here, is to say that these taxes, the same as PIS and COFINS that we have mentioned, and these state taxes and also the municipal taxes are all inside the price. That is very important because many companies, they don't know how to price it. This is what is most very common. The companies came here and they don't understand how it works, so they don't recover 100% of the taxes. So that's why I put an example. If my selling price is 1,000, this state tax will be 18%. For example, if the tax rate is 18%, will be 180 inside the price. And the PIS and COFINS, for example, if the tax rate is 9.25, it will be inside the price. So my cost plus my markup should be, how I should price that? Cost plus markup, and then add my taxes, and then I have my selling price. This is very important. If you want to do business and you want to recover your taxes, please put your taxes inside your price. Otherwise, it's not going to be good because you're not going to recover your taxes, and this is going to affect your markup first and then your cost. So that's why we decided to put this. The ISS is the same, is a municipal tax, so it's levied on services. So it's only related to services, okay? Their tax rate goes from 2 to 5, and it's the same as we have mentioned, is inside the selling price. So if you sell, you're selling from 1,000, the ISS should be inside your price, okay? That's, I think, is very important to mention. Okay. Well, that is regarding taxation. It's important to talk a little bit about transfer price. We are not going to get into the all the what is transfer price in and all the complexity, but it's important to mention that the individuals or legal entities in Brazil that are considered linked, it's mandatory to those companies, because many companies, the OECD is regulating, and Brazil took, it's very similar what the OECD's guidelines said, but it's different. I mean, it's not, Brazil is trying to line up that, but most companies in Brazil perform this transfer calculation by applying, a method that are based on profit margins. Yeah, we're going to see that. This is the most common, that are predetermined by the law, because the other legal methods depend on information that sometimes is not available, or it's very difficult to have, or it's very complex. So at the end of the day, many of the companies work with the profit margins that are also predetermined by the law. So the law said 20%, 30%, 40%. The important thing to mention is that it's mandatory, okay, and also for companies or legal entities linked, and also with when you carry out transaction with what we call it the tax favored country. Okay, so what is a tax favored country? Is some country that, for example, the income tax is less than 20%, okay. Or a privileged tax regime that don't ask anything, or don't have taxation, or something like that. So it's important to mention that the transfer price is mandatory. Okay, these are the main transfer price methods. We have the ones for export and the one for imports. And as we say, the sale price, for example, resale price less profit, the second one here in imports, is, you know, as we mentioned, is 20% of the margin, 30% or 40%. So is based on that. Most of the company do that kind of calculation, because the others, as we said, is a little bit complicated, and you need a lot of information. So maybe the big ones will have a very big, you know, a very well control and understand all the numbers. They are capable to do that. Okay, and so when established the transfer price, we have what we call it the parameter price. So the difference, it will be taxable in Brazil. That is how it works as a rule of thumb. Okay. Now, having said that, we are going to talk about the corporate tax regime. So we spoke about the different taxes, different levels, federal, state, and municipal. So now we're going, when you have once you have established the company, which regime I could, how it works for the company in order to calculate my income tax. So in Brazil, we have 4 regimes right now in Brazil, the most common. So that we call it the simplified tax regime, the deemed profit method, the actual profit method, and arbitrated profit method. And we're going to explain it one by one very quickly. Okay. We mentioned the simplified tax regime because it was something that everyone knows, that Brazil is very complex, taxation is complex. So was you know, on the constitution also, it is considered to have a simplified tax regime for those companies that are smaller. So that's why the annual gross income should be up to 4.88 million. Okay, most of the companies that came from abroad, they are not, you know, qualified 100% to choose this regime. It's very difficult because the restrictions are that company that is a branch, a subsidiary, an agency, or representation, you know, of an entity abroad, or a financial entity, or a joint stock corporation cannot be cannot choose this regime. Okay, but it's important to mention that this company that exist and is calculated the income tax and other taxes. In fact, all the taxes are unified. Okay, this is the main characteristic of this regime. And so all the taxes are unified into only one payment. So I think this is the most important thing to say. The deemed profit method, this is important. Most of the companies in Brazil are under this regime. I would say 80%. No, 80%, maybe less, because of the simplified tax regimes. There are a lot of companies of that, but this is very common method, and is available for the companies that have the income up to 78 million. Okay, which is the most important thing of this method, that is not based on accounting, it's based on gross revenue. So the tax authorities on this, they are not worried about if you had losses or if you had profits. They are worried about your revenue. So they're going to you're going to be taxed based on your gross revenue. That is the main point. So they do a estimated calculation. Okay, so the law that determines a profit margin. So over your gross revenue, that could be 1.6, for example, sales of fuel, up to 32% when you're a company that perform services. So the government says to you, well, which is your area, your business sector. Okay, according to that, I'm going to presume that you have a profit. In and over that profit, I'm going to have you're going to have the taxation. Okay, this is the most important things to mention about this regime. Okay, so here the authorities are not looking to your accounting or your and sometimes happens that many companies are are under losses, you know, they have not profits, but they are still on this regime also, and they are paying more taxes than they should. Then we have the actual profit method, or the real profit method, what we call it. This is a little bit more complex because it's based on accounting. So we have first to have the accounting, it is apart from, it start from your profit, and then you have the taxable base. So the most important thing to say, we have to, it's based on accounting net income, and then we have the different adjusts. We adjust that according what the law says. So important to mention also that this regime could be quarterly or could be on the whole year. So if you choose to be quarterly, you have every 3 months you have to pay the taxes, and during the whole year you have to advance an amount of your tax, and then at the end of the year you do the final calculation. Okay, and this method is mandatory when you have annual revenues, of course, exceeding the 78 millions of the previous regime. If we have profits or income or capital gains from foreign activities, it is important. If you have some tax reduction or exemption from the government, this is also important. And certain activities like factoring, like financial institutions, that are this method is mandatory for them. So let's see a calculation brief overview how to calculate the profit, because it start all with your accounting profit. So the 4 steps basically are: we calculate the accounting profit, we adjust it according to the add-backs or deductions, because the law allows you to recognize certain expenses, and others are not. They not allow you to recognize it on your income statement. So provisions, for example, provisions for holidays are allowed, but provisions for let's say a customer that is not going to pay or something like that, they are not allowed to recognize it from a fiscal point of view. You can do it, of course, and you should do it from an accounting point of view, but not from a fiscal. So the fiscal is only going to be allowed when it happens. So by doing this, you calculate your accounting profit, then you adjust it, and then you get your fiscal profit. That is the taxable base. Okay. So, and we apply the percentage of income tax and social contribution that we have seen before. Okay.
Just to add a comment, Jose.
Yeah.
This is the best choice for new coming companies to Brazil, which are going to face some investments in the beginning, and they are going to face losses. So you won't have income taxes during the period that you are facing losses, which is very common when you start a new business in a new country. You face losses for a certain time, and this is the best tax method for this kind of companies.
Yeah, it is 100%. Why? Because if you don't have an accounting profit, you don't pay taxes. That's simple as that. On the other regimes, if you have revenue, you have to pay taxes. So that's the main difference and as Marcus says, on the beginning, all the companies face a time of don't having profit, and of course the cost of beginning a new business. So this is the main thing. Okay. Something important to explain are the expenses, because as we said, there are some expenses that are deductible and some others that are not. So there is a general rule, let's say, that should be actually incurred, of course. They should be necessary for the business. They should be usual to the company business. Of course, you should be supported by the proper documentation. If you don't have any documentation, you cannot recognize it. So this is very important. For example, when there are some certain expensive as when you give a gift. For example, the companies at the end of the year give some gift to others in order just for marketing purposes. This you cannot recognize it. For example, they are not deductible. So of course the governor will give you a list and you have to check out the list and see what is related to your business or not. We mentioned this profit method, the arbitrated profit method, very quickly because it's not a method that we should we choose as naturally, because this is when it's like in extreme situations when the corporate they don't have an accounting, or the tax authority thinks that you don't having the proper controls, so they apply that. It's just an estimation, so it's just like the deemed cost. So it's just we mentioned because it exists, but it's not the most common and most used, Okay, sorry. Well, here regarding labor and laws, social security, I think it's important also to mention certain things, because the labor laws and social securities, as in many countries, also in Latin America, that are very similar, is a little bit complex also. So it's important to mention some specific things related to this. For example, okay. Oh, Marvin, do you want to ask a question?
Thank you, Jorge. I have other meeting 8 o'clock.
Okay.
I have two questions, Jose.
Yes.
Okay. The coffee is the principal product in Brazil. The exportación.
Coffee, you mean?
Yes, see.
No, when we're talking about exportation, okay, most of the time you don't have taxation. When we export from Brazil, you don't have taxation. You have taxation when you import, as a rule of thumb. Of course, for example, guns are taxed. If you export guns, you're gonna have taxation. But there are right now, I think it's only talking about armor and guns and all that stuff. You have taxation when you export, but the other things you don't have you don't have taxation. If you export any goods, any product, you don't have taxation. No.
Okay. José, se la hago la consulta, es que no la puedo traducir en español.
Say en español, fala en español que yo traduzco después.
Sí, y me la puede contestar en inglés. Siempre me he preguntado si los futbolistas se consideran como un servicio de exportación, y esas ganancias de los futbolistas, ¿qué impacto tienen en la economía de Brasil?
It's a very specific question, and Marvin is asking about the football players. If the activity is considered something like an export business, and which is the impact on the Brazilian economy. Well, I would say that the football players in Brazil, they are under the Brazilian labor law. So if they are individuals, of course, they are under the labor law as the same as other worker. There is no difference at first glance. There is no difference of that. The main difference could be when we're regarding other entities that are representing merchandise, marketing, and all that stuff. This is a very specific thing in Brazil, because most of the soccer clubs here in Brazil, they have a lot of amount of debt before the social security. They are all the time you know, if they were a normal, let's say a normal company, they were shut down you know, many time ago, because they you know, the law regulating football is very specific, and sometimes is not so hard when you compare to other economic sectors.
It's a
But
whole different world.
yeah, it's a whole different world, really, because of the amount of money. And you know, Brazil is the country of the football football country, you know, as we say, país do futebol, with what we call it here. So but I mean, regarding to your question specific, the football player is just like another another employee or another worker, as you know, according to the laws. Yeah,
It
but
should
in
be.
practice, many things happens, you know, and the impact is big on the economy. At the end of the day, yes, we have a big impact, because the many football, the soccer clubs don't pay, and they are all the time doing negotiation and renegotiate the debt. So it happens. It's very common, very common. I don't know if I answer your question 100%, or if you want to ask another question, please feel free, Marvin.
Yes, yes, excellent. Bueno, me tengo que retirar. Thank you, José María. Thank you, Marcos. Thank you, TGS in French.
Thank you, Marvin.
Thank you, Marvin, for being here.
Excellent day.
We speak later with you. Yeah, for you too also.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Marvin.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Okay. Well, we are almost finishing. So this is some, we said something related to the many things we have to consider here in Brazil. That is working period, vacation period, 13 salaries, meal allowance, transportation. So there are a lot of things that we have to consider when you hire an employee here in Brazil. Okay. That is something that many people always ask about, is about 13 salary and vacation. So many companies from abroad don't understand that. So we thought it was important to mention that that all the workers in Brazil have the right to have a 13 salary. I know in France it happens also. Someone said in Belgium also. There are many countries. In Latin America it's very common, the 13 salary. But what is sometimes very is different, or has some particularities, is the vacation, because vacation is the salary plus 1/3. That this is very sometimes difficult to understand, because and they don't understand why is salary 1/3, and this is just by law, or just because of the law. But this is how it works. So we put a quick calculation that if the salary is 10,000, the 1/3 will be 3,333. So the total vacation will be 13,333. Just in order just to understand a quick calculation. So this is because at the end of the day, the company should consider these numbers in order to make these provisions. Okay, so here we come to payroll taxes. Okay, so the company cost over salary just is 35.8, and the part of the company that is related to social contribution, employer contribution. We have the insurance against labor accidents, the contribution for different entities. All these contributions are 35.8%. So, but this is not enough. So, because someone asks you, well, what is going to be my expense? My expense is over the salary. The company cost at the end of the day will be 65.18%. As is in general, of course, any different related to the different sectors of the economy. this rate will vary, of course, will change, but as a rule of thumb, will be, just to have an idea, 65% over
those
the
are
employees.
basically regular benefits, right? Usually
Exactly.
companies want to give more benefits to its
Yeah.
employees, so it maybe become like 100%. It depends on the company,
Yeah.
depends on
Yeah.
the level of the employee.
Exactly. This is will be the minimum, as we
Yeah,
said. Is this
yeah.
this the minimum? So as we previously said, the employee salary, you know, the company contribution here, the 35.8%, 80% that we have mentioned, but we had to make the monthly provision. That is why we go from 35.8 to 65, because the 13 salary will have to be paid once a year, and the vacation, of course, every 1 year, the employee has the right to have a vacation. So it's going to be paid at a moment, a certain moment of the year, or of the year, you know, the next year, but it will be paid. So it's important that the companies have this provision. This provision is deductible from, you can deduct from your expenses. It's allowed to make the deduction. So it's 65%. So it's a burden, you know. Is At the beginning, the companies, you know, is this is the should be the minimum percentage that should be considered when it comes to payroll. Okay. Well, let's make a quick comment about import and exports. I think this is important to mention that in order to make you know to make operations for foreign commerce in Brazil, we need that what we call it the radar. This is a permit. At the end of the day, it's a permit. You have to ask this to the Internal Revenue Service, and this is just to import and to export. But in order to import, you are limited to $5,000. 5,000, sorry, $50,000 or $150,000, depending on your financial capacity. So the IRS is going to measure that. It's going to say, well, do you have enough money to import? Okay, show me, proof that you have that money, that you can pay the taxes. So let's say the entrance, the beginning, it will be the 50,000, and then you go to the next level, and then you have the unlimited, that when you have you know, a better capacity to carry out the import operation. So that will exceed the 150,000, and then you can import. You have no limit. Okay, always related to your main, of course, business. So it's important to say that you have to have that permit in order to do this kind of import or export. Okay, so and regarding import and export, as I said to Marvin also, when you import, you have different taxes. So you have the import duty, and you have PIS and COFINS, and another, you have the state tax that we have to consider. So it's important to understand this. Most of the times, you can have a credit of that over these taxes. And exports, as we said, as a general rule, those operations are not taxed in Brazil. So specific things, some controlled products, as we say, as GANs, for example. So I think this is just important to keep this on mind. We need a permit to import. We need to show financial capacity, and we have to pay taxes when we import. Sorry. And that's almost. Other thing that is important is what we call the NCM. That is the tariff classification, because this is according to Mercosul. It's a number. It's a given number. So the company is responsible for classifying the product, and to, because depending on the classification, the tax that will pay. So it's very important to do the right classification in order not to avoid taxes, or even, you know, because you you could have a fine over that if you're not do the classification correctly. So it's very important to mapping all the products that you are trying or you want to import, because if you don't do that, you can have problems. So of course you maybe you will avoid taxes, or you can pay taxes more than you should. So I think regarding import, this is the main thing. Do the correct classification, have the permit, and know all the taxes involved on this kind of operation. Okay. And of course, at the end of the day, to do business in Brazil, whatever you are, you have to know your market. You know, you have to know your customers. That is very important, because otherwise you won't be successful. You have to have the right partners in order to show you that the partners that have expertise to guide you and give you, you know, the give you the basis, and give you a support in order to understand the complexity. But you have to understand your market and understand your customer, because otherwise you won't have any business, not only in Brazil, but in other part of the world. So this is very important. And well, thank you. We have arrived at the end of our trip from how to do business in Brazil. So this is what we have for today, and I thank you of TGS, Lucy, Margot, uh, for your support.
Andrew.
Andrew also, that is behind the scenes, because but he's there, of course. And the people that will see this presentation later on, that because it's recorded. So hi to all. And if you have any question, please don't hesitate to contact us. We are here in São Paulo, just, to help you through to do business in Brazil. That is very possible. It's a very big market. We have very many possibilities. So, and here you have the right partner. So you can call us whenever you want. Okay. So this is all from my side. Marcus, I don't know if you want to say something.
No, that was good. I think you clarify some important things about Brazil, and of course, any company that wants to come to Brazil needs some support, some help, and TGS in Brazil can help any company over here to establish and do business over here. So that was good. Feel free to contact us if you guys have any questions or anything that you want to know deeply about Brazil. Thanks.